help us.
A desperate woman bangs on his door at midnight, fleeing a forced marriage. To save her, a lonely rancher makes a shocking offer. Marry him for real. It starts as a legal shield against a dangerous predator. But as threats escalate and bullets fly, their fake vows ignite a true passion. Can two strangers survive the storm long enough to find love? The storm lashed the plain with fury when Riff Mercer heard urgent knocks at his door. It was past midnight in that lost corner of the territory. No one called at such hours without a weighty reason. He set his steaming cup of coffee on the table. He rose without haste but with an alert heart. He lived alone in that wide wooden house, surrounded by generous fields and livestock but empty of companionship. At 32, he was known as the loneliest man in the entire county. When he opened the door, the wind nearly tore it from his hands. Under the downpour, a female figure held tightly to the reins of a horse that could barely stand. Her face wet, exhausted, and overflowing with fear sought Riff's eyes. "Please, I need help," she pleaded with an accent that left no doubt about her origin. "My horse is injured and I am being pursued." Riff didn't think twice. "Get in quickly," he ordered, holding the door against the wind. The woman crossed the threshold, and he helped her lead the animal to the adjacent stable. She trembled not only from the cold, but from something deeper, as if the storm were the least terrifying part of her night. "I am Naya," she said with a broken voice while Riff examined the horse's leg. "I have been fleeing from the eastern town. Some merchants wanted to force me to marry their leader. I refused. They tried to take me by force. I barely escaped. And now they are looking for you," he completed, instantly understanding the gravity of the situation. The animal's wound was clear. It would not heal in less than a week. "You cannot continue tomorrow," he stated bluntly. Naya clenched her fists. She was about 26, and despite her evident fear, her dark eyes reflected fire. "I have nowhere to go. My people separated from me years ago as I sought another path. Now I have no tribe, no home, and no family." Riff observed her with respect. He recognized that loneliness. It was the same weight that had pressed on his own bones for years. "You can stay tonight," he said firmly. "Tomorrow we will see what to do." He offered her dry clothes, a hot meal, and the guest room. While she rested, he stayed in the shadows by the window, watching the rain cease. He knew well that those seeking her would not give up easily. If they truly wanted to find her, they would come to town. And sooner or later, someone would speak of Riff Mercer's ranch. The next morning, the sun shone as if the storm had never passed. Riff was preparing coffee when he heard soft footsteps descending the stairs. Naya appeared with her hair tied back, dressed in simple but clean clothes. "Thank you for your hospitality," she said with dignity, standing in the middle of the living room. "I will leave as soon as my horse can support itself." Riff cleared his throat before responding. "I was thinking last night, if those men are looking for you, they will ask in town. This ranch is the most well-known in the area. They will probably come here?" Naya's face paled. "Then I must leave today. I do not want to cause you trouble." "Wait." He stopped her with a gesture. "I have an idea. It is not very common, but it could work." She looked at him with suspicion and also with a certain curiosity. "If I present you as my wife, you will be protected by the law of this territory. No one can touch you without facing consequences. Here, no man can claim what already belongs to another." Legally speaking, Naya's expression shifted from astonishment to skepticism. "Are you proposing that we pretend to be married?" "Not exactly," Riff replied with a grave voice. "A fake marriage would be easy to dismantle and would get us into worse trouble. But if the marriage is real, no one can question it." "If we marry for real," Riff said calmly, "it will be legal, legitimate, and undeniable." Naya took a step back, surprised. "Are you crazy?" She responded without raising her voice. "Marrying a stranger just to protect her." Riff shrugged and gestured to the space around them. "Look closely, Naya. I have this big house, these open lands, enough livestock, and yet I am alone. I have no wife, no family. I live like a hermit surrounded by abundance." He paused for a second before continuing. "You, on the other hand, need a home, security, a place where those men cannot reach you." Naya walked slowly to the window. From there, the desert stretched endlessly, bathed in the morning light. Her mind worked quickly, weighing every possibility. "It is madness," she murmured. "Perhaps," Riff admitted, "but it is a madness that could save your life and perhaps give me something more than this loneliness." She turned to look at him. For a long moment neither spoke. In Riff's eyes, she saw no desire or hidden intentions, only frankness and something else, a loneliness very similar to her own. If we do this, Naya said finally, it would be a practical agreement. You have the house but no wife. I need a home, but I do not have one. It is fair. Riff nodded slowly. Fair, but with conditions. Naya lifted her chin with dignity. I will cook, care for the house, and help on the ranch. I will not be a burden. I will earn my place here. I expected nothing less, he replied with a slight smile. And when do you propose we do it? She asked, still assimilating the magnitude of what they were discussing. The judge comes to town every Friday, Riff answered. We have 3 days to think about it. If you change your mind, I will understand. But if we proceed, it will be a real marriage before the law, without lies, without deception. Naya extended her hand. 3 days to decide. Riff took it, feeling the firmness of her grip. At that moment, neither of them could imagine that this simple agreement between two solitary souls would end up changing their lives forever. As the sun rose over the desert, both began to understand that sometimes the most unexpected solutions are born in the most desperate moments, and that destiny has strange ways of uniting those who need each other most, even before they know it themselves. The decision was made, but the true journey was just beginning. The 3 days passed like a breath laden with tension. Riff and Naya moved through the house, like strangers learning to share the same space. She prepared tortillas and stews that filled the air with warm aromas, while he spent hours fixing fences and tending to the livestock. At night they sat before the fire. They spoke little but observed each other much. Riff noticed the way Naya moved her hands when telling stories of her Apache childhood. Naya, for her part, saw how he treated the animals with patience and respect, without a hint of violence. On Thursday night, a day before the judge's arrival, Riff found her on the porch looking at the stars. Have you made a decision? He asked, maintaining a respectful distance. Naya did not answer immediately. I have been thinking about something you said, she said finally. You spoke of having a house but not a wife. I have skills, strength, determination, but I have no home. I think this arrangement makes sense. Something moved in Riff's chest. Relief, hope? He was not sure. Then tomorrow we will go to town, he said firmly. But there is something else. Naya finally looked at him. Those merchants. The leader is named Creed Boss. He is a powerful man with connections. He will not give up easily, I know? Riff replied, taking a step toward her. That is why this marriage must be real, with papers and witnesses. Riff said firmly, his gaze fixed on her. Once we are legally married, not even Creed Boss can touch you without facing the law. And if he tries anyway? Naya asked with a genuine tremble in her voice. Then we will face him together. He replied without hesitation. You are no longer alone. Naya, those words struck deep. It had been years since anyone had said such a thing to her, and much less meant it seriously. Friday dawned clear and with a serene glow. Riff prepared the carriage early, and both dressed in their best clothes. Naya chose a sky blue dress, simple but graceful. He had found it in an old trunk that belonged to his mother, and when he showed it to her, it fit as if made to measure. The trip to town took a couple of hours. During the journey, they spoke little but of essentials. How will we tell our story? She asked. We will say that you passed by the ranch looking for temporary work, he suggested. That we became friends and over time decided to marry. And if they ask why so quickly, then we will tell half the truth. That in these lands, when one finds the right person, there is no sense in waiting. Upon arriving in town, Riff's stomach churned. Outside the general store, 3 unknown men were asking questions, and one of them was showing what seemed to be a portrait or a written description. Naya noticed it too and paled. It is them, she whispered, pressing her lips together. Riff took her hand firmly. Keep calm. In less than an hour, you will be my wife before the law. No one can touch you. Without wasting time, they went straight to the judge's office. Judge Eli Thorne, an older man with a calm voice, had known Riff for years. Riff boy, what brings you here so early? He asked with curiosity. I have come to get married, Judge. Riff replied, not letting go of Nia's hand. The judge raised his eyebrows, truly surprised. Get married? But you never mentioned having a girlfriend. Things happen fast, Riff said without excuses. This is Nia. We met a few months ago and decided we didn't want to wait any longer. The judge looked at the young woman with attention and kindness. Miss, are you here of your own free will? No one is forcing you. Nia lifted her chin proudly. I am here by my own decision. Riff is a good man. Well, well. The judge smiled. Although unusual, there is no reason to deny it, but I need 2 witnesses. Riff looked out the window and saw Will Maddox and his husband Bram Cutter leaving the bakery. Decent and trustworthy people. Willa and Bram could serve as witnesses. An excellent choice, the judge agreed. 15 minutes later, both entered the office surprised but happy to participate. Willa even had tears in her eyes seeing the scene. Judge Eli Thorne opened his book and began the ceremony with solemnity. Riff Mercer, do you accept Nia as your lawful wife to care for and respect her all the days of your life? Riff looked into her eyes, and in that instant, although this began as an agreement, he felt the weight of the promise. Yes, I accept. Nia, do you accept Riff as your lawful husband to support him and stand by his side all the days of your life? She swallowed hard. This man had received her without knowing her, offered her refuge without asking for anything in return. Yes, I accept, she said with a clear voice. Then by the power vested in me, by this territory, the judge proclaimed. I declare you husband and wife. Riff, you may kiss your bride. There was a brief pause. They had not discussed that moment. However, he leaned gently and kissed her forehead with respect. Nia closed her eyes. She felt a warmth she did not expect. Will applauded with emotion and Bram gave Riff a slap on the back. The judge indicated where to sign. They did. It was official, they were married before the law. Upon leaving, Riff kept the certificate carefully in his pocket. But as soon as they stepped onto the street, one of Creed Boss's men approached. Excuse me, sir, he said with a forced tone. Have you seen an Apache woman with long hair traveling alone? Riff put his arm around Nia calmly. I have not seen any woman traveling alone. This is my wife, Nia Mercer. We just got married. The man observed her with distrust, but Nia did not shrink or look away. She stood firm, pressed against Riff's side as if her body also said, Yes, I belong here. Congratulations, the stranger muttered. Though his voice sounded neither honest nor polite, he turned and walked away without another word. But Riff knew that this was not the end, not by a long shot. We have to return to the ranch, he whispered to Nia as they walked toward the carriage. During the return journey, they barely spoke. The silence between them was not uncomfortable, but dense. The weight of what they had just done settled in their chests like sand after a storm. There was no turning back. Now they were spouses before the law. Upon arriving at the ranch, just as the sun hid behind the hills, Nia got off the carriage. She stopped for a moment, contemplating the house that was now legally hers as well. Mrs. Mercer, Riff said with a half smile and his hat in his hands. Mr. Mercer, she replied softly, returning the smile, although with a lump in her throat that was not entirely fear. They entered together, unaware that among the shadows of the slope, someone was watching them. Creed Boss had not disappeared. He was only waiting. The first week as husband and wife passed with a strange harmony. They did not sleep in the same room. He stayed in his sheet in the guest room. They did not talk much, but they worked together as if they had been sharing land for years. Nia proved to be surprisingly skilled. She knew every plant in the desert, which ones healed and which ones poisoned. She taught Riff how to follow almost invisible tracks, how to read the ground, how to listen to the animals, things her people had taught her since childhood. He in turn showed her how to move cattle without hurting them, how to fix fences and repair rusty tools. There was a way of collaborating between them that did not require many words. One afternoon, while they were repairing a section of the north fence, Riff squinted, noticing something on the horizon. Dust is rising on the road, he said in a low voice. Alert, Nia dropped the hammer in her hand. Her body reacted before her mind. Something in her instinct told her danger. Go to the house. Riff ordered without looking at her. Get the marriage certificate. It is in the top drawer of the desk. She did not argue, she ran. Riff remained there with his feet firm on the earth and his gaze fixed on the approaching dust. 3 riders were coming at full speed. When they were close enough, he recognized the one in front. Creed Boss himself. He wore a dark suit, a wide-brimmed hat, and an expression on his face that left no room for doubt, arrogance and threat in equal parts. Behind him, 2 men with hard faces and absent manners like unleashed dogs. Riff Mercer, Boss asked, stopping his horse right in front of him. The same? Riff replied without moving an inch. What do you need? Creed dismounted slowly. His eyes scanned the ranch like someone evaluating a property before taking it. "Nice place," he commented with a crooked smile. "I heard you recently got married. My congratulations?" "Thanks," Riff crossed his arms. "But I doubt you came all this way just to congratulate me." "You are right," Creed said, and his smile became sharper. "I am looking for a woman. She belongs to me, an Apache named Naya. She stole something very valuable from me, her promise of marriage." Riff looked at him without blinking. "Here no one belongs to anyone, and if you are speaking of Naya Mercer, she is my legal wife. I have documents to prove it." Creed Boss's eyes narrowed. He was no longer smiling. "Your wife? How convenient," Creed Boss said with venom in his voice. "A woman fleeing from me appears at your ranch and days later becomes your wife." At that instant, Naya came out of the house with the certificate in her hand. The wind moved the edges of the paper, but she held it tightly. Creed saw her and his face hardened like stone. "What have you done, Naya?" he asked with a sugary voice that did not hide the threat. "I have taken the reins of my life," she replied, advancing without fear until she stood beside Riff. "I never gave you my word of marriage. You tried to force me and I escaped. Now I'm the legal wife of Riff." Creed took a step forward charged with fury, but Riff immediately placed himself in between. "One more step," he warned, "and you will be invading my property with hostile intentions, and that has legal consequences." Creed stopped, but his smile did not disappear. "Very clever, Cowboy. But listen well, I have influence, partners, power. I can make life in this county a hell for both of you." "Threats do not scare me," Riff replied, "and your connections are not above the law." Creed fixed his gaze on the certificate Naya held. His jaw tensed with contained rage. "This does not end here," he muttered. "You have humiliated me in front of everyone, and you, Mercer, stuck your nose where it didn't belong." "My wife is my business," Riff said without blinking. "And now I ask you to leave my property." Creed mounted again with slow, deliberate movements as if each gesture carried a warning. He did not take his eyes off Naya for a second. "Enjoy your marriage while you can," he murmured before riding away with his men. When they disappeared on the horizon, Naya let out a trembling sigh. "This is going to get worse," she said bluntly. "I know," Riff agreed, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "But you are not alone. We will face it together." That night Riff did not sleep a wink. He sat on the porch with his rifle beside him, his gaze fixed on the dark desert. Around midnight he heard soft footsteps. Naya appeared wrapped in a shawl. "You cannot stay awake all night," she said, sitting next to him. "Someone has to keep watch," he replied. "Then let us keep watch together." She took the rifle without asking permission. "I can detect movement in the darkness," she explained. "I can hear things you cannot." Riff looked at her with a mixture of surprise and respect. "Where did you learn all that?" "From my people. Women are not weak, nor do they stay waiting," she said naturally. "We learn to survive, to fight, to protect what we love." "And what do you love now?" Riff asked. Naya looked toward the house behind them. "This place is more than a refuge. It is the first place where I have felt peace in many years." "I am glad to hear that." Riff smiled. "Because now it is your home." They spent 2 more hours in silence. They said nothing, but something had changed. Riff no longer saw Naya as a stranger. She was strong, intelligent, and bringing new life to his home. At dawn Naya spoke. "There is something you must know. Creed did not want to marry me just out of pride. My Apache family has rights to lands rich in water, lands he desires for his businesses. If he married me, he could claim them." Riff understood immediately. "So, all this was not about you. It was about power and resources." "Exactly." Naya nodded. "But now that I am married to you, those rights are protected." He lost more than affiance. He lost a valuable business, and that will make him dangerous. He will not give up. Riff said firmly. "He won't do something soon." Riff stood up. His expression became more resolute than ever. "Then we will prepare. If he wants war, he will have it. But he will not face a single person. This time we are 2 and we have more to lose than he does." Naya also stood up. For the first time she took Riff's hand without hesitation. "Thank you for not regretting helping me." "I will never regret it," he replied, squeezing her hand sincerely. "You are the best decision I have made." At that moment both felt that something had broken and something new had begun. What started as just an agreement was now a real union, an alliance of soul and land. Meanwhile in town Creed Boss was not sleeping. He was planning his next move, and it would not be kind. 2 weeks passed under a tense calm. Riff and Naya worked hard during the day, but the nights were different. They began to share stories by the fire, to laugh. The distance separating them began to shorten. One night Naya cooked a dish from her childhood, roasted meat with desert herbs and cornbread. Riff tasted it and closed his eyes. "This is wonderful. I have never eaten anything like it." Naya smiled proudly. "My grandmother taught me. She said that food made with love heals the body and the soul." Riff looked at her intently. "You made it with love." She blushed, lowering her gaze slightly. "I made it with care and appreciation." Before Riff could say anything more, a noise shook him. A dry sound out of place. Something was not right. The horses in the stable began to agitate restlessly, snorting and kicking the earth. Riff stood up immediately and took the lantern. "Stay inside," he said with a firm voice. But Naya was already behind him without hesitation. "I already told you I am not defenseless," she reminded him with a dry tone. They went out together into the yard. The full moon bathed the entire ranch in silver light, and the silence became thicker with every step. The horses remained tense, neighing. Something was wrong. Naya crouched down and touched the earth with her fingertips. She closed her eyes for a moment and then whispered, "Fresh footprints. 3, maybe 4 people surrounding the house." A chill ran down Riff's spine. "Creed, boss." As if his thoughts had summoned him, a voice emerged from the darkness. "Mercer, be reasonable. Come out and let us talk like civilized men." Riff frowned. Although he could not see him, he knew that voice well. "We have already talked, boss. We have nothing more to say to each other." "Oh, I think we do." Creed's voice sounded soft but with an edge. "I have made inquiries. Your marriage was very convenient, too convenient." Naya and Riff exchanged glances. She was breathing fast. He was tense as a tightrope. "Our marriage is completely legal," Riff shouted. "We have witnesses, signatures, everything in order. Papers can be questioned." Creed replied from the darkness. "And witnesses can remember things differently." Riff felt a knot of rage. Creed was right about one thing. With money and power, he could drag them through years of legal battles. But Naya stepped forward firm as a pillar. "Listen to me well, Creed. You can try to destroy our marriage in court, but that will take months, perhaps years. And in the meantime, I will remain his wife. Your plans to take the Apache lands have already failed." Silence. And then Creed's voice changed. It was no longer silky. It was raw. "Then I will have to be more direct. Sure, accidents happen on ranches. Fires, runaway horses, fences that give way. It would be a pity if something happened to your dear husband. And a widow," he added with venom, "is much more fragile than a wife." Blood rushed to Riff's head. "You just threatened me." "Trort, I have not threatened anything." Creed replied with feigned innocence. "I am just saying that life here is dangerous, very unpredictable." At that instant, Naya moved. She grabbed a smooth stone from the ground and without hesitation threw it toward where she had heard the voice. The stone whistled through the air. A cry of pain confirmed she had hit her mark. "That was my warning, Creed," Naya shouted. "The next one will not be a stone. I know 50 ways to stop a man without killing him and 50 others that would. Do not underestimate what an Apache woman can do to defend her home." Hurried footsteps were heard. Movement in the underbrush, muffled voices. Creed's men were retreating. The voice sounded again, more distant, loaded with rage. "This is not over. But when I return you will not see it coming." The sound of hooves moving away was lost in the night. Riff and Naya remained in silence. His heart still pounded like a drum. "That was incredible," he managed to say, looking at her with amazement. "How did you know where he was?" "Apaches learn to listen with their whole bodies," she replied. "He talked too much." He revealed his position. Riff smiled despite the danger that still floated in the air. "I am glad you're on my side, and will always be on your side," Naya said. And both understood that it was not an empty phrase. They went back inside, although they knew they would not sleep. They sat together in the living room planning, aware that Creed Boss would return. But now they were no longer just two strangers in a convenient deal. They were allies, they were home to each other. "We cannot continue living waiting for the next attack," Riff said through gritted teeth. "We need to get ahead." "I agree," Nia replied thoughtfully. "Freed plays dirty because he knows he cannot defeat us legally. But if we show the town what he really does, he will lose his influence and his allies," Riff concluded. "But we need proof," she said, biting her lip. "Last night he made threats. If we can get him to repeat them in front of witnesses, a trap. Riff said, his eyes shining. The plan began to take shape. They spent the next hour devising every step. The risk was high. It required exact timing, a bit of luck, but it was their best chance. This could go very wrong, Riff warned. I know, Nia replied, taking his hand. But I prefer to fight and take risks than to continue living in fear. Riff looked at their joined hands. In a few weeks, that woman who had arrived as a stranger had become his partner. His equal. His what exactly? Nia, he murmured. This started as a practical arrangement, but it has changed for me too, she interrupted him, her voice charged with emotion. It is no longer just an agreement. It is real. It has become real, he agreed. She moved closer. When Creed threatened to hurt you, I felt a fear I had never felt before, just imagining losing you. Riff raised his free hand and caressed her cheek. You will not lose me, and I will not lose you. We will face this as true spouses. Then they kissed for the first time. Truly, it was not a formal gesture. It was a kiss full of promises, of bonds that had grown in silence between daily tasks, shared nights, and long looks. When they parted, both smiled. Tomorrow, Riff said. We will put the plan into action. Tomorrow, Nia repeated with conviction. They did not sleep, not out of fear, but because there was much to refine. And for the first time in a long time, neither felt alone. The plan was simple, but dangerous. Riff would send a message to Creed boss through a merchant in town, requesting a peace meeting at noon in the main square. A place full of witnesses, families, vendors, and Judge Clyde Barker, who ate lunch every Friday on the corner. Morning arrived with a clear sky and a fresh breeze. Riff and Nia got ready, reviewing every detail. He put on his best shirt. Are you sure about this? He asked while buttoning up. Sure. She replied decisively. Freed must be stopped, not just for us, but for everyone who could be his future victims. They arrived in town an hour early. Riff greeted the neighbors calmly. Nia slipped discreetly toward the judge's office. Judge Barker, a fair man nearing 50, listened to her in silence. If he really makes public threats, I can arrest him, he assured, but I have to hear it with my own ears. I will be nearby. At 1200 sharp, Creed boss appeared mounted with his 2 henchmen. He looked confident, like someone who had already won. They met in the center of the square. Around them, neighbors pretended to look at fruits, chairs, newspapers, but everyone was attentive. Mercer, Creed said with an exaggerated tone. Your message surprised me. I thought you had finally come to your senses. I came to hear your proposal. Riff responded tall and clear, so that everyone could hear. You said you wanted to resolve this like civilized men. Creed smiled, believing himself victorious. Perfect, my proposal is simple. Annul your marriage to Nia, set her free, and I will pay you, say, 500 lozen. Enough for you to expand your ranch. A murmur ran through the square. The sum was considerable. Are you offering me money for my wife? Riff said, pretending to reflect. It sounds like, how to put it, buying a person. Creed let out a dry laugh. Do not be melodramatic, it is a transaction. She has rights to lands that I need. You have a ranch that needs investment. We all win. Except me, Nia said, stepping out of the shadows. Her voice cut through the air. Creed tensed upon seeing her. Except the woman you treat as if she were property, something that can be bought or sold. Creed's face turned to stone. Dear, this does not concern you. The men are talking. The men. Nia repeated, raising her voice. Do you mean those who threaten to burn down houses? Those who talk of accidents when they cannot get what they want? Creed took a threatening step toward her. Watch what you say, woman. Or what? She challenged him. Will you do the same as you said the other night, 'cause an accident, burn our house while we sleep? The square fell into complete silence. Every gaze fixed on Creed boss, whose face had turned red. First from shame and then from contained fury. I never said those things, he grumbled. But even he knew his voice lacked conviction. I heard him, said a voice from the crowd. It was Bram Carter, one of the wedding witnesses. 3 days ago, I heard him in the warehouse talking to his men about resolving the Mercer Ranch matter definitively. Me too, added William Maddox, appearing beside his husband. He asked how much it would cost for someone to take care of a persistent problem. Creed looked around. He knew the situation had completely slipped from his grasp. His 2 companions began to retreat with clumsy, nervous steps. It was then that Judge Clyde Barker emerged from among the stalls, the badge on his chest shining in the sun. Creed boss, he said with tempered authority. I have heard enough threats of violence, attempted bribery, and conspiracy to cause harm. You are under arrest. This is ridiculous, Creed screamed. I have lawyers' connections. Your lawyer can visit you in jail, the judge interrupted, placing handcuffs on him. And your connections are useless when there are a dozen witnesses. As Creed was dragged away shouting empty threats, the square erupted in murmurs and agitated conversations. Riff and Nia looked at each other, barely believing their plan had worked. Willa approached, running, hugging Nia tightly. How brave you were, daughter. We all knew that man was a bully, but no one dared to confront him. I was not alone, Nia replied, taking Riff's hand. I had my husband by my side. Judge Illythorn also approached, smiling. Well done, Riff. When I married you a month ago, I did not imagine I was uniting two people so made for each other. What you did today was true courage.